9 U.S. Supreme Court justices have adopted a code of conduct.
The justices insist they've abided by ethics standards for years, though they've been under increasing political pressure to adopt a formal code of ethics. The justices were the only federal judges in the system that did not abide by a specific code. Part of the new code focuses on finances, reading. A justice may accept reasonable compensation and reimbursement of expenses for permitted activities if the source of the payments does not give the appearance of influencing the justice's official duties or otherwise appear improper.
Fox's David Spunt reports some Democrats are critical of the new code because it doesn't include a method to punish violators. Stellantis says it will offer a buyout or early retirement packages to about 6,400 non-union U.S. salaried employees. Carmaker says it's facing challenging market conditions. It's offering the buyouts to protect its operations and the company and to prepare for the transition to electric vehicles. Nearly 24 toddlers have fallen ill with lead poisoning, apparently from tainted applesauce.
The CDC says at least 22 children between the ages of 1 and 3 have gotten sick from pouches of cinnamon apple puree and applesauce. The sicknesses are part of an outbreak tied to recalled products from the brands Wanabana, Schnucks, and Weiss that were sold in stores and online. The reported symptoms include headache, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, a change in activity level, and anemia. Lead exposure can lead to serious learning and behavior problems. The CDC says kids who may have eaten the products should be tested for lead levels. Lisa Lacera, Fox News.
Efforts to create a landmark treaty to end global plastic pollution are advancing in a meeting in Nairobi, Kenya, where participants are talking about the treaty's draft language for the first time. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
The Nissan Ninja is back, and he's slashing prices on our entire certified pre-owned inventory. But how low will he go? 20%? 30%? No, he's slashing up to 40%.
Nani?
All makes and models available. Sports cars? Slashed. Luxury cars? Slashed. Trucks? Slashed. Crossovers and SUVs? Slashed. Get to Nissan Guam before this Ninja disappears. Debt fees not included. See dealer for details.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Their services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Yeah, here we are on a Tuesday afternoon still talking about not infringing on the people's right to keep and bear arms. Certainly a good way to start a radio talk show that's based on justice, the American way, patriotism, fair play, the United States Constitution, the rule of law, things like that.
Can I pick your brain on the Second Amendment?
Certainly.
This kind of came up yesterday in the comments section, and since Tello has reignited fireworks for the new law that was passed for fireworks, the question
Did you have a short fuse, Jose?
Yes, it was a short punk. So the question that came through was, are fireworks protected under the Second Amendment?
Not even close.
Okay.
No.
That was it.
Firearms. are protected.
Just firearms.
Yeah.
So explosives and claymore mines are not protected.
Not protected.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, not at all. Okay, so moving on. There's no Zemi Cotney today because the Daily News had a string of 2 days in a row, and then they bailed out again. And of course, the Post hasn't written an editorial for, it must be 7 or 8 months now, maybe even longer. So we go next to the card, and here's what we've got on the card for today. We've got Monica Flores versus Israel. Now, this is important enough that it can't be dealt with in one episode. Monica Flores has embraced the whole idea of decolonization and tit for tat, so to speak, to the point that it's foolish. She has made a foolish comparison that I want to keep letting the public know about. And that's the first item on the card. We go from there to a couple of heavyweights, more or less. That would be Jose Martinez, Chris Duenas.
Uh-oh. Redux?
Well, we haven't done that one yet.
No, and I think it's and you know I'll bring it up respectively, of course, to Senator Chris Duenas, not because I'm pulling punches, but because it's come up again, and I hope there's not a repeat of the last session.
Okay, well you can bring us up to date on it. I thought maybe you'd bristle a little bit when I referred to the two of you as a couple of heavyweights, but.
But no featherweights here.
Yeah, all right. And next we've got Rory versus Brown. This one's been going on almost as long as Israel and Palestine.
And I heard you were invoked this morning. Your name was invoked.
Yes, it was. And on Ray's show, as a matter of fact.
That was my fault.
Your fault. Oh, you asked the question,
yes.
Huh? All right, yeah. It was a good question.
It's an opportunity.
Good question and wrong answer.
Exactly.
Yeah. If I asked Jose, if I said to you, Jose, I just got my coffee. Can you please pass the cream? And you pass me a glass of water. And then I say, Jose, I got my coffee now, and I really need some coffee, some cream with my coffee. Could you please pass me the coffee? And you pass the ketchup. And the third time I ask, you finally pass the cream. Would you then be permitted to say, I gave Bob everything he wanted?
No.
No. Would it perhaps be more like something along the lines of, Bob got the stuff out of me that he wanted, but it almost required a dentist to make the extraction.
I gave him everything from the first shelf of my refrigerator.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, then we've got 37-48 public law, racism versus fishermen. And this is really well hidden too. And then we've got barbarians versus the swamp. And I'll get you know where the swamp is. I'll give you a tip on who the barbarians are. One of them's named Johnson. The other one's named Kennedy. Yeah, now we've had Johnsons and Kennedys as presidents of the United States. This is not them.
Nope.
And then we've got U.S. Attorney versus Bingo again, and trannies versus you. Now, you may think this whole trannies thing is kind of something to titter about, chuckle about. Oh, yeah, she wanted to be a boy, so she, This is much more sinister. I didn't realize it myself until I read a publication from Hinsdale College, which is one of my very favorites, called Imprimis. So I'm going to give you a little review on that. Okay, so let's start out here with Monica. Wait a minute. We got to start out with systemic racism, Jose, and we've got some visuals to go with systemic racism today, don't we?
That's the plan.
Yeah, we hope so. The God of technology being willing. Okay, here it is. You know how it works. You look at the rice in the bowl. The rice is orange. You see the bucket behind it? That's red. There's a difference between red and orange. They're not the same color. People want to call the rice that's served at fiestas, fandangos, social gatherings, etc., they want to call it red rice, but it really isn't. It's orange rice. Paul Zerzan called the public attention to that, and the Daily News wrote a scathing piece about his trying to chase custom and tradition, etc. And the title of it was "The People of Guam Aren't Having It. Leave Our Red Rice Alone." Paul Zerzan got canceled. He was a prolific letter writer before and a darn good letter writer. They won't run his stuff anymore because he did the cardinal sin as far as the media cartel is concerned. That is that he complied with the truth. He honored the truth. He repeated the facts. He did not rely on the narrative. And the rule in the 21st century is when there's a conflict between the narrative and the truth, you got to go with the narrative if you don't want to suffer the consequences. Right, Jose?
All the time.
Yeah. So I have a really good example here of the difference between the truth and the narrative, the facts and the narrative. Here's an eternal truth that I'm going to throw out one more time on the show here. And I've got a narrative that goes with it. It's never permissible to take the life of a helpless, innocent, defenseless human, no matter what the circumstances are. Here's the narrative from Vanessa Williams. It's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. There may be other things that are more important. So we just decided, even though we're pregnant, we're not going to have children. Okay, so this is about abortion. So go ahead and run that video, Jose.
Of your organization. These are simple yes or no questions. Is it okay to murder a 10-year-old child?
No one should be forced to remain pregnant if they don't want to.
Is it okay to murder it? And help me understand the position of your organization. These are simple yes or no questions. Is it okay to murder a 10-year-old child?
No one should be forced to remain pregnant if they don't want to.
Is it okay to murder a 10-year-old child? Yes or no?
I am deeply offended that you would call me a murderer.
I'm not calling you a murderer, ma'am. I'm asking you a question. Is it okay to murder a 10-year-old child? This is about your organization's position. Would they say yes or no?
My organization's position is that no one should be forced to remain pregnant if they don't want to, and any abortion restrictions are...
Okay. Let me answer the question for you. I'm assuming that you do not advocate for the murder of children. Okay. What about a toddler? I assume you would say it's not okay to murder a toddler either, a 2-year-old. What about a newborn? Let me ask you this, the position of the organization. Are you for partial birth abortion? Is that the position of the organization? Would you support that?
What my organization is for is to support the people who need abortion care, who are lied to when they are sent to alleged pregnancy resource centers that lie to patients and tell them...
Would that apply to a woman who is 9 months pregnant?
I disagree with the premise of your question.
Would you support the abortion of a late-term unborn child?
Anybody should have the right to have an abortion at any time and for any reason.
That's what I need. So here's the thing. I'm just trying to understand the logical fallacy. So if we would not support, and I mean this sincerely, and this is not for you personally, I'm talking about the organization. You support an advocacy organization. If it is not okay to take the life of a small child outside the womb, why is it okay to take the life of a small child 9 inches up the birth canal, inside the womb? What is the distinction? Help me understand the distinction of that.
I don't understand the question.
If you would not support the murder of a small child, right? No one would. No civilized person would. Why do we support the taking of a life of a child right before they're delivered?
No civilized person should support forced pregnancy.
Does abortion take the life of something that's alive?
No one should be forced to remain pregnant against their will.
Ma'am, you're not answering my questions. Let me ask the doctor on the screen. Is it okay, or let me ask you this, does abortion kill something that's alive, take the life of something that's alive?
Sir, the way that you're asking these questions actually intentionally invite violence and harassment to both of us, to all of us.
I'm sorry, that is an absurd response. You're a medical doctor. Tell me if if there's an unborn child in the womb or not. Are we killing something that's alive? When you dismember something in the womb, is that a human being or not? It's a living being, yes or no?
I'm here to talk about medical care.
Yes, this is a direct question about medical care, ma'am. You positioned yourself as an expert on the issue. Are we taking a life or not? Is it a life, yes or no?
What you are discussing is not the reality of how abortion care is delivered in this country.
If we were in a courtroom, I would say that that's non-responsive.
Now let's go back to something that you probably missed in this
Do you want to hear his commentary?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Inside the womb. What is the distinction? Help me understand the distinction of that.
I don't understand.
Questions. Let me ask the doctor. Tell me if there's an unborn child in the womb or not. Are we killing something that's alive? When you dismember something in the womb, is that a human being or not? It's a living being, yes or no?
I'm here to talk about medical care.
Yes, this is a direct question about medical care, ma'am. You positioned yourself as an expert on the issue. Are we taking a life or not? Is it a life, yes or no?
What you are discussing is not the reality of how abortion care is delivered in this country.
If we were in a courtroom, I would say that that's non-responsive.
Now let's go back to something that you probably missed in this video when one of these pro-abortion advocates said, and I quote, "I believe in a woman's right to an abortion at any time and for any reason." They tell themselves there. Because here's the thing. The mainstream media generally allows abortion advocates that are in positions of power in the Democrat Party, whether it's, congressmen and women, senators, advocates, etc. They allow them to get away with never staking a true position on abortion. Whereas, some of these reporters ask, one of these Democrat congressmen or women or etc., do they believe that abortion is wrong after any point? They will never, ever, ever answer the question. And they will not answer this question because what they all believe, or what they have all been pressured to believe, is that abortion is okay at any time and for any reason. And at any time for any reason includes 9 months, all right? So now the abortion polling has been done over decades and decades and decades, and most people generally do not support abortion after the first trimester. The left wants to seem as if they are more moderate on this pro-abortion issue than they really are. The reality is that these people believe in abortion up to and including 9 months. And if you look at how Governor Ralph Northam, the former Governor Ralph Northam sees it, it could even be post-birth.
Yeah, so there you have it. I can't think of a clearer example of systemic racism. An easy question. Is the baby inside the mother's body a human being? Is it a human? Well, that's not what I'm here to talk about. What you're doing is inciting violence, just crazy talk. And, of course, if you have no argument, what else can you do? What are you left with? You're left with stern repetition of the narrative in order to avoid any discussion of the real truth and the facts. This is the essence of systemic racism writ large. We probably ought to pay this about once a month, Jose, so people don't forget. So all of you anti-abortions out there, all of you folks on the right side, on the only side of this issue, that's what's on the other side. This passes for a thought process on the other side.
And please learn this. Repeat and learn about what it is that abortion does, because there is a bill that's been introduced that similar to what happened in Ohio. And what happened in Ohio, well, the bad thing wasn't that the bill to allow abortion all the way up to birth was passed, is that we didn't have any alternatives to offer people to say this instead of that. Here on Guam we do, and we do have strong voices, and we do not want to repeat what Ohio did. And that was to pass abortion in their constitution to make it legal all the way up to birth.
Mm-hmm. And of course, once it's in the state constitution, it becomes very difficult to deal with. Talking about, we have voices here and we have alternatives. By now, the Republicans should have dusted off Bell's Law and reintroduced it. What happened?
Unfortunately, it's a Republican who introduced the abortion up to birth bill.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and deeply saddening.
It is indeed. Okay, next item on the card is Jose Martinez versus Chris Duenas. So give us some background here, Jose.
Well, the background is I had a lot of extra time on my hands, and I was able to follow a particular session. And I only watched the Fridays. I think it was October. I can't find my calendar. It was a Friday session. I believe it was October 27th. And they were discussing the fireworks bill that Senator San Nicolas had proposed, and it was on the second reading already, and I was noticing there was a lot of pushback from senators from the day before, where Telo Taitigui had been offering amendment after amendment on introducing safety measures. Now, whether you are following the fireworks bill and on what side of the other, which to me is fine. The problem that I saw arising was nobody that supported the fireworks bill wanted to listen to any of the amendments, and I thought that was very interesting. But the most interesting thing I saw was there was a number of Republicans trying to stop Senator Telo Taitigui from even offering or discussing them or having a debate on the floor. And then there was a process called calling the question. You're probably more familiar with that, which completely killed the discussion, and that was calling the question on an amendment. I believe the session was adjourned on Thursday, and they came back after recess on Friday. Friday, Telo Taitigui still had some time left, according to the speaker, and she started the session closing up the amendment that had the call to question, and I believe she had another amendment to offer, and that's when the legislative fireworks started. First, Senator Chris Duenas came up and questioned the call to question, because I think he was the one that did that on Thursday, called the question to kill the debate. I think Fisher also asked that question, Senator Fisher asked that question also. And then after Duenas, after about a minute or two going back and forth with the speaker, because she said he was out of order, Senator Barnes stood up and started doing the same thing about wanting to revisit the call to question issue. Let me backtrack here. That was happened on Friday, the call to question, and then on Monday they came to another session after the weekend, and they had the call to question debate, and it was going back and forth between Tina Muna Barnes and the speaker, and she wouldn't stop. It was about 15 minutes worth of back and forth. And so finally the speaker relented and called a 1-minute recess to confer with counsel, with legal, on what was prudent and what was policy or what was procedure. That minute, of course, recess turned into 5, 10, 30 minutes. And I think after an hour, nobody came back. Nobody that was questioning the speaker, nobody who was saying they were going to confer with legal, came back to the session floor. I thought that was very curious. So then, actually there was about 2 or 3 hours. Then finally the speaker said there was no quorum, and she recessed for lunch to come back at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock came. There's 2 or 3 senators in session, not including the speaker. The speaker was there also, and they still had no quorum. After an hour of waiting, for the rest of the senators to come back to session. She called it for the next day. To me, that was just unheard of. Not unheard of. To me, that was a waste of time. A waste of time on a silly issue of trying to debate a bill. I think that not people were passionate about, but ultimately had real concerns with safety in it. So ultimately, I think on one of the days, Senator Duenas called in, and he was discussing he called into the Ray Gibson show and was discussing the meaning of what happened, or discussing what happened during those sessions, and why he was trying to stop Teletubby, and ask other questions. And it didn't sit right with me, because I was already frustrated that the debate was over and nobody wanted to talk about safety in this fireworks bill. But more so, I saw a really troubling thing of a fellow Republican being stifled by another Republican, and it didn't seem like there was any reason to. The reason that Senator Duenas gave was that he said that Teletubby was poisoning the bill, and then she was filibustering, which I know what poisoning a bill means. It means adding things that have nothing to do with the bill, and then filibustering is talking about everything but the bill, except for that's not what was happening on the session floor. So I called in, and I hope I was respectful to him and called him out and said, look, I don't understand why you were the one that was obstructing the senator in her amendments. I would hope that it would have been the other side, the Democrats, who did it. It just didn't look good for the party, and it didn't look good at all. And he did talk about the amendments and said, if you look at the amendments, you'll see that they were kind of silly. And I said, really, honestly, it wasn't about the fireworks. It was about how we support each other on the floor and session floor. Plus, I already had a bad taste in my mouth of an entire day wasted because these senators didn't want to come back to session. Either they didn't get the answer they wanted from legal, or they wanted to prove a point to Speaker Terlahi that they weren't going to get their way, so they're not going to show up to session. And that's where the fireworks are happening. And then when the phone call happened with Senator Duenas and myself on the air, he had the final word, which is great, because I said my piece. I didn't want to debate him about the fireworks bill, but I hope that not just him, but the other. Oh, let's also add this one. One more thing that I didn't know about. Tim Roy had wrote a piece in Jungle Watch about that exchange, and there's a part of the exchange that he pointed out that was important, and to me it was automatic for me. Senator Chris Duenas had invoked Senator Fisher and said he stood by him because he was countering what Speaker Terlahi was saying on the call to question and allowing Senator Telegui to continue the next day with another amendment. And I just mentioned I don't know about Senator Fisher and his smarts, but because he is very staunch pro-abortionist with no concern for the reason all the way up to birth. I don't think I used the word birth, but I used other words that he had. There was no abortion for whatever reason. That anything else that he stands on is suspect to me. So I can never align myself with him, and I hope that his own party members understand that the issue of abortion isn't just about a one issue thing. It's the start of life. It's the start of everything that has to do with ethics and morals to me. And if you come up with something that is without limits when it comes to killing or disposing or terminating the life of an innocent human being, that's gravely concerning. And I'm not understanding what any other bill he can bring up that would overshadow or speak over someone who is so passionate about being pro-abortion.
Well, thank you very much, Jose. That's a nice summary. I'd like to go back and ask a few questions along the way. You said that the Republicans were trying to keep Tello from making her amendments. How did the Republicans do that? Boo and hiss, get out bullhorns?
No, and that's the part. It was all about going on the floor and stopping her from speaking by doing these procedure things.
You mean like calling for the question?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was the Republicans that called for the question.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about that for a second. A motion to call for the previous question means that the vote must be held on the previous question. That motion is not debatable. Madam Speaker, I move to call for the previous question. All in favor? It's the way it's supposed to go. Now, I suppose there's a little bit of quibbling to be done, and that is, did Chris call for the question on the amendment under discussion, or call for the question on the vote on whether or not to send the bill to third reading?
The amendment.
Just the amendment. Okay, so there can be no more discussion on that amendment, but it wouldn't stop a senator from making more amendments.
Well, that was the question the next day on the session floor, that the call to question. Senator Duenas, I think, was saying the call to question was for the bill, and I think Speaker Terlaje said it was for the amendment.
Okay. Now, you said that Senator Terlaje and Vice Speaker Barnes debated this for 20 minutes?
It was interesting because Vice Speaker Barnes wasn't present at the session before, and she was. It seemed like an attempt to clarify things, but it was more of obstruction because she kept repeating herself, even though she already got the answer from the speaker that, number one, she was out of order, and then the Vice Speaker tried to call a vote to say that they almost like a no confidence vote, I guess, to overrule the speaker.
Yeah.
And the speaker said she was out of order and couldn't do it at that time. And I believe it turns out she was correct because they never came back to session to counter it from legal. But I'm only assuming that.
Well, you know, first of all, the speaker should not have spent 2 minutes debating with Senator Barnes because a motion to call a question is not debatable. So there was no reason to even recognize Senator Barnes because there was nothing that Senator Barnes could have said that would have been in order. So the speaker herself, in effect, was out of order. When the legislature recessed and senators didn't come back, this is a pretty easily understood procedural move, and that is that in the absence of quorum, the only thing that can happen is that an adjourned meeting can be called. In other words, the speaker can call a session later on, even though there's no quorum there to conduct business. She can say, well, the next session will be at such and such a time. The speaker does have a remedy if, when at the time the session is supposed to start, a quorum isn't present. She can do what's called a call of the House and send the sergeant of arms out to arrest members that aren't there.
She did that one time.
Yeah.
Right?
She did, and during this fracas, she did it?
One time, I think, yeah, because there was the next day. There was people that they needed to do a vote for, and they were there, and she brought them in. I just want to say real quick, I can see Senator Duenas trying to call in, and I'm trying to reset the phones because I'm answering it, but I'm not hearing him on the other side. So
okay.
I don't want him to think that I'm surprised.
Yeah, we're not calling the question on you, Senator. Go ahead, Jose.
Just want to take a break real quick?
Yeah, let's take a break and give Senator Duenas a chance to call in.
People are saying the future looks uncertain.
Jobs, education, even our health.
Everything seems harder now.
They wonder if we're up to the challenges we're all facing.
We don't. We share in the proud history of our island and people.
We share the drive to serve and make life better for all of us.
We all share the will to overcome and succeed.
With part-time service in the Guam Army National Guard, you can share that too.
Join Guam's next greatest generation.
Contact us at 671-969-5967 or visit nationalguard.com/Guam to find out more.
Sponsored by the Guam Army National Guard and this station.
Hafa Alex Dimapan here from Security Title. Title reports, escrow forms, signatures, statements, and title insurance. When it comes to buying, selling, or refinancing your property, we do it all for you. At Security Title, we enjoy watching your dreams come true and being the ones to make sure it happens just as you planned. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
So here we go again. Chris, I'm assuming that you heard the background upon which you'll be speaking. So I can't wait for the usual greeting that I haven't heard for a couple of months. So fire away on that, and then we'll give you an open mic for a while.
I can't wait to express this greeting. Welcome home, Your Honor, Honorable Marine, Honorable Senator, my favorite talk show host, and that won't change regardless of the disposition of this discussion. But I did hear Jose's position, and let me say it this way: I not only have the deepest respect, but I've even fortunately held the chair in that great studio of The Point, subbing for Ray, and I think that no question about it, regardless of where you land on an issue, this is the best forum and the best ability to deliberate issues that are of importance to our people. And so I wanted to lay that out. Jose is on track. The question of the previous question that I called was not for the amendment. It was on the amendment during that time, but I called the previous question on the bill. It was clear, and the reason why I gave the accolades to Senator Fisher is he's not only been legal counsel for minority prior, but he spends most of his time, particularly during debates, and his Mason's manual, like a lot of good senators I know, particularly those who are from the law profession, is always at the ready. And it was clear that the question was called, and there was no question in question the way the question was called. Now, going to the reasoning, and this is why I, even in my back and forth with Jose, I said I couldn't wait for him to get back on the radio too, because I don't know if he was privy to the amendments that were being proffered. One amendment did pass that was proper, and that was part of the rules and regulations stipulation section going forward. That is the duties and responsibilities of the Guam Fire Department and the chief, actually in his official position. To give you an example of two amendments that, and most of them really were, as I call it, poison pills. One of the ones was 50% taxation rate. Now, I think that even you, Your Honor, and I, and maybe Jose can agree that, yes, the rule is tax the hell out of what you hate and subsidize what you like. But even at that, it wasn't designed for that purpose. Even ammunition, and Senator Jesse Lujan made this good point on the floor, taxed at a rate, I think, somewhere around 8%, and goes specifically towards safety measures for ammunition and associated with that activity of firearms, ammunition, and the like. 50% was basically just, let's price the hell out of this thing so that, this consumer grade firework that basically nobody would buy because it would be senseless. And I'm sorry, but I can never, even for something I detest, be for that type of taxation that is just silly, really, on its face. The second was an amendment basically accusing senators on the floor of passing this bill or trying to pass this bill because they were going to be, they couldn't wait for this bill to pass so they can run up to rev and tax and get their business license and become, an entrepreneur for selling fireworks. And the amendment was no senator on this floor currently voting for this bill can engage in any type of business associated with consumer grade fireworks for 20 years. Okay, great. I mean, I obviously had no problem because I have no interest, and I know the people that I talked to and knew on the floor that were discussing this issue had no interest. But I just think it was silly on its face because that kind of test is not applied to a lot of different legislation that comes across the floor.
If I could interrupt for a minute, sure. Chris, it sounds like a bill of attainder. which is prohibited in the Constitution, the Organic Act, and what it means is legislative punishment. You vote the wrong way, we will punish you. But go ahead, Chris.
And so this was the example, and to give you some background, Senator St. Nicholas had been discussing a few other amendments that we were planning on and planning for. One of them, and it is true in terms of timing, the issue that we discussed, and we even discussed this with some of the fire department and some of the regulatory agencies, was the issue of anytime, anywhere, and the like. Now, there was individuals that said, well, you could do that, and that would probably be better, but there are nuisance laws. There are laws to where, you know, if you're a mechanic and you love to do lowriders and you sit at 3 o'clock in the morning and just blast off your car, I mean, somebody calls the cops, they're going to come in there and enforce a nuisance law. Now, there are things to tighten things up going forward, but realistically, the amendments that are being proffered were not along those lines. The second thing is the issue of the filibuster that I was talking about was clearly there was disagreement, which is exactly what happens on the floor. But with certain senators, and I think you've seen this before, Senator Bob, some people will introduce amendments, even if they're ridiculous or an amendment a lot of times, to not stand up and discuss the amendment, but to basically make a bunch of statements that aren't even germane to the amendment they're proffering. That was my discussion on filibustering. It wasn't just Senator Tyree, it was other senators who just didn't like the bill, didn't want the bill to pass, and wanted to take so much latitude during a debate on an amendment where they would spend 10 seconds talking about the amendment and then 14 minutes and a half talking about how much everybody here is trying to blow up children and cause fires and Lahaina is going to happen on Guam and everything else. You know, I know that you've seen speakers, they handle things different ways. But by and large, there is a time when there's latitude, but then there is a kind of a gentle bounce of the gavel saying, you know, stick to the amendment. We want to understand the amendment so we can decide how to debate it and whether we're going to vote on it or not. That was my point that I was making when I was talking to Ray in terms of the filibustering and the campaign speeches that other senators were standing up and discussing. So in a nutshell, I know it's a contentious issue and the like, but I want to say that my point and other folks' point to basically saying, you know, it's clear where the lines are drawn. You're going to vote for this bill or not vote for this bill. And the timelines are such that there's no real productivity to the amendments that are being proffered because you can see it. And I'll try to pull them all together and send them to you. But that was my point of view, and I knew already that this was, you know, going to be an up or down, or should be an up or down vote based on most of the merits that we discussed.
Well, I have some probing questions here, Chris. What is the proper role of a senator during floor debate on a bill? Don't we ordinarily allow a senator great latitude when it comes to stating his position on in favor of or against a bill? And even if the amendment that the senator makes is clearly a poison pill, the remedy is for the next speaker to rebut or qualify or whatever, and it takes a majority of the members present in order to pass any of these amendments. So I don't know. I'd like to hear a little more justification on silencing a senator because we don't like the content or breadth or length of her amendments.
No, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that process at all. I think that what we've gotten to is we did that to a large extent for several of the amendments that were already proffered and had failed. I mean, we had been like on our third amendment already. It wasn't like the first amendment got put up and we were like, okay, we're done with this. We want to go home and barbecue. It was, you know, it had happened already. There were several amendments that had already been proffered, and it was clear what was going to continue going forward. And so to me, I don't disagree with that, and I don't disagree with that debate. But when you start completely getting outside of the latitude of discussion on the amendment, it becomes clear what the point is. And we have called the question, I believe, 4 times in this legislature already. Once was, and I did it again, because I knew that Senator Perez had 5 amendments that were attempting to kill my effort to not that the military was very upset about, and clearly we're going to stop doing elimination of explosive ordnance out in the public and rights of way and private property because the stupid legislation that she passed. And I introduced that during an emergency session, and the same type of thing was happening. There was like 5 or 6 amendments that were actually gonna try to undo the bill I introduced to just say, listen, this is stupid. We don't need to have bombs exploding in people's backyards when we need to have EOD and others come out and deal with this. And the body agreed as well. We went through a couple of them, and a lot of senators that were supporting Senator Perez, particularly on that super activist side, were like, let's just do this, because they were mad that I even introduced the bill to begin with and got an emergency session. And so it was the same thing again. It was going to be the same debate over and over. Meanwhile, the clock, now this is different, of course, but the clock was ticking. I'm giving you an example of why this has happened several times in this session. The clock was ticking, and we had to pass that bill to make sure that time certain, the end of that month in February, that we didn't have people trying to build a house and digging up a foundation, and a bomb is there, and they've just got to call Senator Perez's office to get rid of it. So
wouldn't they have to call the PLO in order to do? Hamas in order to do?
At this point, I think that would be the definite default. Definitely, we'd get one of those individuals or several of them, and maybe fly them over here and then have them handle it. I mean, but so that there's a little bit of history and a little bit of a pattern. But I don't disagree. But it wasn't as though it was the First Amendment that was proffered and wasn't going wasn't going anywhere, and we were going to spend ad nauseum, once again litigating the main motion as opposed to the amendments. And here, I'll finish with this. And here what ended up happening after the speaker, as far as I'm concerned, and I know this for a fact because I played the tape back to them where I made the actual motion. It was on the main motion. And when it was ruled out of order on the second time when we came back into session, because we were out discussing this, saying, you're wrong, Speaker, and you should admit it. Because I can show you tapes of other sessions that we had, because we've done this 4 times, where you knew when the senator rose to the main motion, it was done. It ended debate, whether you liked it or not. And so that was the off-camera debate. When we came back, she continued to rule out of order, and the parliamentarian agreed. We went forward. Same thing happened. Most, if not all, those amendments still made it to the floor, and all failed, Your Honor. Failed by a majority. I think the average vote of any of those amendments was 3, and the same, exercise took place. So it wasn't as though the debate didn't go forward on the bill on those amendments that were ruled out of order, but every single one of them failed save one.
I don't mean to interrupt real quick. There is a break we have to go to, and I'd like to just wrap up a real quick response. That was pretty long, but I didn't call it a question. But Senator, we can go to break real quick, and then we'll come right back after this minute.
Yes, Tall Tales.
Of course, happy to be here.
Tall Tales will stand in recess.
The Nissan Ninja is back, and he's slashing prices on our entire certified pre-owned inventory. But how low will he go? 20%? 30%? No, he's slashing up to 40%.
Nani?
All makes and models available. Sports cars? Slashed. Luxury cars? Slashed. Trucks? Slashed. Crossovers and SUVs? Slashed. Get to Nissan Guam before this Ninja disappears. Fees not included. See dealer for details.
Okay, so we took a short break here. We got about 7 more minutes till halftime. Tall Tales is back in session. Jose, let me hear my gavel. Okay, you may proceed, Jose.
All right, and I appreciate that summary that you have because you were there on the floor. I was watching it on video, and the process is still new to me, learning everything. That being said, again, like when you called in and then Ray allowed me to respond to you or to give a comment, I'm more strongly about this had less to do with fireworks than it had to do with how it played out on the floor. And as a layperson watching it all happen, this is what I saw, and I think a good amount of other people saw it the same way. The person proffering the amendments was Senator Tello Taitagui, a fellow Republican, and I understand trying to get debate and talking out of the way so that you guys wanted to vote on it. However, when we have a problem with sometimes supporting our own, whether we agree with them or not, on certain items, this was not something I think to be obstructive to or someone to be obstructive to. If she was going on and on, it would have, to me, it ought to have been somebody from the other side, from the other coalition doing that, because this was Senator Duane's bill, who also did not align with you guys during the voting of the speaker and continues to not align himself. And I understand Senator St. Nicholas is a nice guy, but excuse me, there's a lot of things that he was doing also that was filibustering during those sessions, to the point that Speaker Terlahi had to read him what was the called point of personal privilege meant. It wasn't meant to say, I don't like these criticisms about me, in which he did for almost 2 or 3 times. He stood up to do that, talking about how happy he wanted to make the island and talking about his childhood dream, instead of actually retorting to the amendments. Now, as far as if you want to go to the amendments, I actually downloaded the testimony on Bill 937, which had all the people in charge that I think the experts we ought to be listening to, kind of similar to how the governor is not listening to the experts when it comes to the hospital. This fireworks bill had experts coming to the legislature asking for these amendments and saying this is what we ought to be in the bill itself. And I don't think any of those amendments, or hardly any of them, were even offered or allowed to be debated. There was no a window of time that was discussed. There wasn't any other things that they had put up, not just the fire department, the marshal, the Department of Environmental. I can't read all these acronyms, but there's quite a bunch of people up there that said that this bill was anemic and it had a lot of work to do.
Hang on, Jose, but that I don't think you're reading the committee report, and Your Honor will understand where I'm going here. The bill that was placed on the floor is as substituted by the committee. There were a number of things that were brought in to bear, including the beginning of the fact that the fire chief and the rules and regulations to be promulgated will be done by the chief, and the final decision of any consumer-grade fireworks will be at the discretion of the chief. That's substituted. See, when you read the committee report, a lot of times you're reading what they said and what they wanted. The fire department and others got a lot of what they wanted done because it was included in the bill. Senator Taitagui's amendments were not what the fire department was asking for. They weren't asking for 50%.
No, and again, I just want to put up the fact that amendments were asked to be discussed. Whether or not Tello Taitagui had exact things, amendments that specifically they wanted only in her discussions, is fine. But again, we have 2 coalitions that everybody knows is well defined in the legislature, and the fireworks bill wasn't something to go up against somebody in our own coalition, and that really stuck with me, and I think it stuck with a lot of people that something really strange was going on, and it was very not just uncomfortable, it was disconcerting.
First of all, Jose, it wasn't only myself. Actually, Roy Kanata was the one who rose to call the question to begin with. There was more than 10 votes on that floor to do that. And what I'm saying is that I rose and completed it because the votes were there, because he was ruled out of order and I was the next individual to speak on the bill. It wasn't particularly my decision to go ahead and disagree with a fellow member. It was my time. it was my time to rise to speak on the issue. So the fact is that you know, the coalition, when you talk about the coalition on the floor, and look, I'm not trying to ultimately adjudicate a lot of things that you wouldn't see happening on the floor, but it's not true that Senator Nicholas has abandoned and has his own position. He voted with us, and he was the key vote for the override on the governor's bill to begin with when it came to the hospital. He was a switch vote with regard to that and came over. He voted twice already to override what the governor was trying to do with the first position on Eagles Field. He took a lot of grief for that. He also voted with myself when other Republicans didn't vote on the issue of taking to task the committee and the Rules Committee when it came to Julian Jensen. Senator Nicholas made a lot of votes to where he's come to the other side, and he's been a neutral ally. But notwithstanding that, Senator St. Nicholas was promised over, first of all, the bill was introduced in February. Everybody who was trying to say that they were trying to help the bill promised in 4 sessions, kept asking him, put it off to the next session, put it off to the next session. And he at this point, finally said, I'm going to put it on the floor and see what happens. And I supported that.
See, this is, we're coming up to a really hard break, but again, the issue is not about fireworks, and it almost seemed like there was a huge concern for the coalition over a fireworks bill. All the other bills you're talking about are very important ones, are very pertinent to this island. The fireworks bill isn't, and it seemed it kind of damaged the optics were there, and it kind of damaged things that. To me, I might be overstating it.
I got to sneak this in, Jose, before the break, and that is, Tello is a Republican. You remember Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment, Jose? Chris? Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment, thou shalt not speak ill of thy fellow Republican.
And you need to really start watching some of the press releases that come out of some Republican offices. They're terrible. They speak a lot of ill about a lot of Republicans. There's a lot to go around here, Your Honor.
Well, it sounds like good talk radio to me. So you see one, send it over here, and we'll put it on the air.
I'll send you one right now. Take care.
Thank you, Chris. Let's break for the big halftime show, Jose.
Leader Chuck Schumer. Schumer says the bill is not perfect, but he is, quote, pleased with Johnson's approach.
Fox's Chad Pergram at the Capitol. The extension in spending that runs out Friday led to Kevin McCarthy being ousted as House Speaker. The National Guard has been called in to assist Washington, D.C. police on Tuesday during the March for Israel scheduled for the Mall in Washington, D.C. Thousands are expected to attend. The Department of Homeland Security has designated the Washington rally a Level 1 security event, though officials say they're unaware of any specific threats. Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu telling Fox's Hannity Hamas must be defeated.
This kind of barbarism that many believed was a relic of the past has come full force in the 21st century. And we see that these darkest forces that take us back to the Middle Ages and maybe earlier periods are just as rampant.
President Biden has reportedly asked Netanyahu to avoid attacking the Shifa hospital in Gaza City. Israel's Defense Force says Hamas has headquarters facilities beneath the hospital. Bloomberg reports when the president meets with China's President Xi on Wednesday in San Francisco, they'll announce an agreement for China to crack down on fentanyl. America is listening to Fox News.
I'm Dana Perino.
Ninja is back, and he's slashing prices on our entire certified pre-owned inventory. But how low will he go? 20%? 30%? No, he's slashing up to 40%.
Nani?
All makes and models available. Sports cars? Slashed. Luxury cars? Slashed. Trucks? Slashed. Crossovers and SUVs? Slashed. Get to Nissan Guam before this Ninja disappears. Fees not included. See dealer for details.
We don't want you standing in long lines. It's just not right. So Bank Pacific provides excellent online and mobile banking and 24/7 access to your money with our Visa debit cards. And if you want to visit any of our 4 offices, please do so, because we're short on lines and long on service, open Fridays until 6 and on Saturday mornings. Goodbye to the frustration of waiting in long lines. Say hello to Bank Pacific. It'd be our privilege. Bank Pacific, member FDIC.
Many newly arrived migrants in some major U.S. cities reportedly want to go home.
New York City has spent millions on migrant housing, but after one look at the accommodations at Brooklyn's Floyd Bennett Field, many families are turning around. Migrants are now reportedly refusing the tent shelters in Brooklyn and demanding hotel accommodations in Manhattan. Mayor Eric Adams says the city is using, quote, every possible corner of New York City and are quite simply out of good options to shelter migrants. One Democratic state assemblywoman has described the situation as a, quote, disaster waiting to happen. Meantime, some migrants who have made it to Chicago now say they are moving back to Venezuela as the city runs out of resources to care for them.
Fox's Jackie Abanya is in New York, where the city's intake center has processed more than 10,000 migrants since September of last year. There's fresh evidence that the subways in New York aren't safe, even for the cops.
Cops say a uniformed police lieutenant was responding to a call for help from a conductor when he was viciously attacked inside a Bronx subway station. Police say the lieutenant was ordering two men with weapons off a subway train when instead they assaulted him, injuring him badly enough that he was hospitalized. The union representing police lieutenants says the fact that a uniformed officer was attacked on a subway should worry every New Yorker who rides the rails. In New York, Gary Baumgarten, Fox News.
The Wall Street Journal reports its investigation of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation has uncovered a toxic cesspool of misogyny, including strip clubs and lewd photos, according to the paper. Chairman of the FDIC responding to the report, saying the agency has hired a law firm to conduct a thorough investigation. Transportation Security Administration says this Thanksgiving holiday likely to be the busiest ever. They expect to screen 30 million air travelers between this Friday and November 28th. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Wow, nice smile. So perfect and all.
Thanks. I owe it all to Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team. They do wonders for a healthy, happy mouth.
Got teeth? Don't wait until they hurt. Schedule your routine checkup and cleaning with Dr. Yang and his Smile Team. Suite 119 in the East-West Business Center, Upper Tumon. Call 647-8702 or 3.
The best thing that happened to teeth since toothpaste.
Dr. Yang and his Smile Team.
They make smiles happen.
Hafa-day. Alex Dimapon here from Security Title. Title reports, escrow forms, signatures, statements, and title insurance. When it comes to buying, selling, or refinancing your property, we do it all for you. At Security Title, we enjoy watching your dreams come true and being the ones to make sure it happens just as you planned. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Hungry for a big meal? Meet your match in Chili's bundles with 3 bundles to choose from. Get 2 Chili's entrees with our bundles, starting at $30. Chili's bundles delivers big on all the flavors you crave. The Tex-Mex bundle serves south of the border flavors like bacon ranch or brisket quesadilla, or Chipotle fresh Mex bowl and tacos. Indulge in the classic bundle of the Humongous Bacon Rancher Burger and a fajita combo. Got a bigger appetite? Go for the Banger bundle with a half rack of ribs and honey Chipotle sirloin. Plus, each bundle comes with chips and salsa for starters. At Chili's, more life and delicious bundles happen here.
So there we are, Rogues Gallery on Tall Tales. Got the mechanics working again, right, Jose? Yeah, good job.
Got it done.
Okay, so this is not the first, this is not Monday, it's Tuesday, but it's the first day we've had electronic capability, so we haven't run the Hope Cristobal show for quite some time, Jose. Are we ready to roll it today?
Let's see here. I believe so. I can get this going. Let's see if it'll let us.
Colonizer! You're nothing but a white colonizer. That's who you are. Colonization is the same thing as slow murder. You're a murderer. That's who you are. Get off my island!
Sir, you need to go. You can't be policing people here and telling people how to protest or what to protest for. You need to go. You need to go. I'm against this. Yeah, that's cool, but you cannot be policing people and telling them how to protest and what to advocate for. She has a right to yell.
I'm an indigenous tomorrow. I have more rights here than you are. You came here because of the structures of colonialism, asshole. Tayo mamalaw sige Joseph Tano di tautano how baho bini tautano baho bini magahoga baho son na dai ju bini hago tata na son mo bini you need to leave.
You need to go.
Please.
You need to get out of here.
Please pause this.
Get out of here.
Please, this is not
When I get a chance, go.
Please. Thank you. Thank you, partner. Please, please. Oh, you think not
What happened, man?
Oh, he confronted me.
What did he
He's
say?
telling me I shouldn't be here. I support Black Lives Matter. It's part of the colonialistic systemic racism. And I came here to support these people. He's a white man that has come here. And he continues the legacy of colonialism. He continues to fight people, individuals, my goodness. I'm a former senator. I authored the Commission on Decolonization.
You're proud of you, Auntie.
So there you have it. We play it. We try to play it every Monday. We'll continue to play it every Monday. This is something of a disappointment. Hope Cristobal holds at least one responsible position in the community. She's the chair of the Chamorro Language Commission. She's a known figure in the community. We would expect a little bit more dignity out of a person like that, running around calling Paul Zerzan a murderer, condemning him for being a white man that's come here, and, of course, trotting out the old colonialism thing here. Obviously, Hope and Palestine Paris have something in common. Palestine Paris.
I find it interesting that all these Black Lives Matter supporters weren't out there throwing up their signs supporting Hamas as well, because I think Black Lives Matter was the first entity or well-known entity to go and support Hamas right after October 7th, staunchly.
Yeah, well, it makes sense because it's part of the racial hierarchy that's part of colonial, as you were
marginalized.
Cultural Marxism.
Culture, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a hierarchy. We've got the oppressed and the oppressors. The oppressors are everybody who's white. That's the worst class of oppressors, except Jews are even worse because they're white and they're even worse. And then everyone who has a different color, sexual appetite, you name it, are the oppressed. And Palestine Paris and Monica Flores want you to know that they are a part of the oppressed and they side with Palestine, with Hamas because of that. It would be very interesting to find out where Hope is on that. One would suspect that she would also sympathize with Hamas. Okay, we go right from there back to the first item on the card, Maneka versus Hamas. And I want to read this one more time. I spent a long time on an article by Simone Sebak Montefiore about the decolonization narrative is dangerous and false. I'm not going to go through that again, but I'm sure you remember it. And then we come to Maneka and the reason that she's backing Hamas. And here it is. This ran in the Post on the 6th of November. Florists likened the atrocities in Palestine to what the Chamorro people have gone through. The thing is, we are a colonized people in the Marianas and in the Pacific, and we know very well what it's like to be imprisoned. Maneka, you were imprisoned. To be forcefully removed from our lands, to be forced to march, to lose our language. To lose our lands to eminent domain for so-called national security, and for us to watch it happening, for the whole world to watch it happening in Palestine right now, and watch how the United States government and other Western governments are basically supporting that horrible ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing. We're here to demand more of our leaders. Our leaders cannot take that position, and they need to rise up for the Palestinian people. This is Maneka. Yeah. They need to rise up for the Palestinian, because we shouldn't take any more of this ethnic. Now, if you digest what she's saying, she's against Western civilization. She's in favor of Hamas, brutality. Talk about ethnic cleansing. Which one of the groups, the Hamas or the Israelis, are the ones that want to wipe the other off the face of the earth and obliterate their country?
It's in Hamas's founding documents.
Yeah.
Specifically labels the Jews as have to be eliminated.
Yeah. That's what ethnic cleansing is all about. I suspect, though, that the media cartel here will continue to give her a pass. And most of the folks that live here are going to say, that's just Maneka and I. Well, in other words, let it go. Although it would be people on her side that would tell you that speech can be violence. Right?
That's right.
Like the abortion lady, the abortion doctor. Your questions invite violence. Okay, next on the card is Rory versus Brown. And Rory made this one really easy. Rory sent out a press release, and he sent out a copy of his letter to Speaker Therese Tetlahi that he copied into the governor, the lieutenant governor, Port Oversight Chair Amanda Shelton, former Senator Judith P. Guthertz, Port Board Director Dorothy Harris, Director Conchita Taitano, Port Authority of Guam employees. But the press release and the letter are almost exactly the same. Now this goes to the confirmation of Judy Guthertz, actually the lack thereof. And this happened when I was gone and I missed it. I don't think it was reported.
Kind of, sort of, yeah. They, I remember them bringing it to the floor to be put on the session, but I didn't watch that part where they voted it down.
It wasn't reported.
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, that's too bad because 99% of the names that go for the legislature for confirmation are confirmed. Very unusual that someone is not confirmed to a position he's nominated for the governor. And there are good political reasons for that. And that is that when that person's name comes up for confirmation, this is your opportunity to stand up and engage in hagiography. You can tell all of the television audience how well you know the nominee, what a wonderful person he is, how lucky we are for him or her to throw his hat into the ring of public service, on and on and on. And when the vote comes down and the person is confirmed, his friends, relatives, and supporters will love you for a long, long time. On the other hand, if you vote not to confirm, you can possibly develop lifelong enemies. The rewards for doing a good job as a steward of the public's power will be few and far between. In other words, there's a big downside risk and not much to be gained for voting for non-confirmation. So when the legislature doesn't confirm, you have to harbor the idea that somewhere 8 folks had a really good idea why this person shouldn't sit on that board. That's just the general dynamics of confirmation. Senator Guthertz was not confirmed. Not the first time she's run into a political buzzsaw. At one time, Senator Guthertz was nominated by Ricky Berdalio to be the director of public safety. Now, there was a time when the police department, fire, and corrections were all in the same department, and instead of having a uniformed chief, they had a civilian chief who was known as the director of public safety. That was Judy Guthertz. Judy Guthertz got crossways with people because when Hospital Road, I don't know what the hell they're calling it now, but when Hospital Road was widened, she would not permit parking on the curb lane next to the church. And boy, did this stir up a hornet's nest. Before it was all over, there were people who were absolutely against Judy Guthertz. She'd been confirmed, so that horse had left the barn. What the legislature did, though, was they split up the Department of Public Safety, made it into the fire department, the police department, and the corrections department. And they did not appoint Judy Guthertz to be chief of police. So in other words, they pulled the department out from under her. I'm not saying this was the right thing to do. I kind of thought she was doing what a police chief ought to do. You know, if it's not safe, don't allow it. But she bit a hard political apple on that one. She ran for the legislature 4 times, prevailed 3 times, lost the 4th time around. And she was elected to the CCU on more than one occasion. And she finally bagged it at the CCU. And I was curious, because one would think if you lusted after a board, that would be the one to lust after. Because it's almost a quasi-legislative position. It's a crucial position. You get $1,000 a month stipend. People pay a lot of attention to what you do. The people who are elected to the CCU as a general principle are pretty good folks. There's a self-selection process there. A lot of folks who could be confirmed to boards or commissions wouldn't be able to get elected because they go before the public. So she bagged that and then apparently talked the governor into appointing her to the board, to the board of directors. Now, I thought that one of the things that she did on that board was wrong, and I called her out on it, and I'm going to do it again. And that is that I have sent a lot of sunshine law demands to Rory Riciccio. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Rory has not done a good job with the port. I don't know any reason to say that he's done a bad job at the port. In fact, I know people that do business with the port and say he's done a good job. But I've been really hard on him for his willingness to settle contested litigation instead of letting the process take its effect. The very first time he had a meeting with the port board, the first thing he did was saying, you know, we ought to talk to Champ Calvo and see if we can't get a mediation agreement to settle a YTK case. Now, you recall that was about $15 million worth, where an arbitration panel had said that the port owed Champs Corporation, YTK, $15 million. The matter was on appeal before the Supreme Court of Guam. Rory said to the board, you know, I think it'd be really good if we sat down and asked Champ if he would take this to mediation. Once the Supreme Court decides, we have no bargaining position if they decide against us. Well, it turned out that Rory had taken it upon himself to contact Champ. This came out at the meeting. He said, oh, yeah, I just to feel him out. Well, it turned out that he had not only done that, they had agreed on the time and the place of the meeting. Oscar Calvo, who was a board member at the time whose term expired, told Rory, you should resign. You don't have the authority to do that. No one told you you could do that. At the same meeting, Rory said, I really have a lot of problems with the way the Port 7 was handled. And I want to appoint a task force to look into how the Port 7, I'm not sure that the right thing was done there. So he appointed a lady named, I believe it was Shinohara, to chair the task force. She lasted about 3 weeks and she resigned. He also, at the same meeting, said that he wanted to dump Mike Phillips, that Mike Phillips' bills were outrageous, and of course Mike Phillips was the lawyer who was guiding the director, Joanne Brown, at the time of the Port 7. So Rory said, I want to get rid of him. We need to hire in-house counsel, hire an employee instead of an independent contractor. It'll save us a lot of money. So he went out and hired Joe McDonald. Joe McDonald lasted less than 2 months and he was out of there. Rory then brought Louis Baza to the port from the Civil Service Commission. Louis Baza was put in charge of personnel. Rory delegated his authority to negotiate with the Port 7 to Louis Baza, who admitted at a legislative hearing that he sat down and negotiated settlement with lawyers for members of the Port 7. Well, you know, maybe he watched a lot of Law and Order, I don't know. So Rory just had this penchant for settlement. That wasn't the end of it. And we had the infamous case of Coe San Nicolas. Frank Coe San Nicolas. Rory fired Coe San Nicolas. The reason he fired Coe San Nicolas was because Coe couldn't come to work. And if Coe did come to work, he couldn't carry a firearm, and he was part of the port police. Those are the reasons that Coe got fired. Coe was indicted for 2 rapes. He went on trial for both those rapes. And anyone who read the accounts of the trials, I think, walks away with the opinion that Coe really disgraced himself in the port. It was really a sleazy performance. Well, Coe had good counsel. Coe won before the jury. So we, as a general principle here in the show, we uphold jury verdicts. We don't go back and say, well, the only reason they got us because the jury screwed up. Unless you sat through the whole trial, you don't know exactly what went down. But anyhow, Coe got 2 favorable jury verdicts. The ink was hardly dry on the verdicts when Rory began negotiation with Jay Areola, who defended Coe in the 2 rape trials and before the Civil Service Commission. and settled the case with Jay, agreed to pay all of his back wages, no talk about mitigation or anything like that, the entire sum of his back wages, attorney's fees, which is right. But the attorney's fees, the amount was $160,000. And so I did several FOIAs saying, send me the invoices. Well, there were no invoices. Send me this, send me that. I got nothing. In fact, Rory got indignant about it, saying, I keep telling you I don't have those documents. What do you want me to do? I can't make documents just because you want them. So finally, apparently I changed my question a little bit, and he sent me the letter that he got from Jay. And Jay said, I'm not going to give you my invoices because it's it's privileged. However, you know, when you consider that I had to get not guilty verdicts in order for him to be reinstated, we had the trial, the civil service, all of this. If I were to bill my regular rate, it would have been over $400,000. But I'll settle for $160,000. Rory cut him a check.
Okay. Does that pass an auditor's smell test?
Absolutely not. Now, the first time I asked Rory, for the basis for the award, he sent me a check for $160. Gave me everything I wanted, right? And this went on, right? So I don't know if Rory knew what he was doing, which is not good, or didn't know what he was doing, which is not, or if he did, it's even worse. But, you know, one would think that if you're going to pay money for attorney's fees, you've got to have documentation, not just, well, I did this and I did that. And of course, we all know, we know from our Attorney General and his letters to the UOG that you cannot pay for the criminal defense of a government employee. So Dave Sablon is trying to plow that ground right now. So this kind of puts a little different spin on Rory's chat with Ray this morning. Yeah, maybe he sent me a lot of stuff, but I had to keep asking for it, and I had to keep asking for it. And as far as I'm concerned, Rory never finished because he shouldn't have been reimbursing fees that went even in part to defense of a criminal case. Okay, I want to get into Rory's release. I'm going to go to Wrigley Field. I'm going to come back to Ken, and then I'm going to go into Rory's press release.
Trolls Band Together is heading our way. Want to win some free tickets?
We're out of sync. We've gone from boys to men, and now there's only one direction for us to go, the back streets.
Tune in every day for a chance to win free movie passes to see Trolls Band Together on Saturday, November 18th at 10 a.m. at Regal Theaters. Brought to you by these fine sponsors: BBG Automotive, the UOG Endowment Foundation, Domino's Pizza, and the stations of Choice Broadcasting, The Point, Boss 104, and Star 101.
So, Ken, it's a seventh inning stretch here at Wrigley Field. That means I only got 2 innings more, and I hope I strike that last batter out so I can go home. but you've been in the on-deck circle for a few minutes, so step up to the plate.
Well, it's real interesting, Rory's position on not presenting invoices and being willing to pay without invoices. Because whenever I requested invoices from the port when Joanne was running it, I got lawyers' invoices. Now, they were redacted, which you can expect, the details of the charges, letter to, redaction, response to, redaction, meeting with attorney for redaction, but it was line item detail, and, I got invoices in excess of $700,000 looking at that situation there. So Rory is failing his fiduciary duty, and I'm not surprised. Remember, this is the guy that had secret meetings with Guam YTK and offered to settle out of court for $5 million or $7 million. So I'm not surprised that he's so free with the public's checkbook, because he didn't write that check. The taxpayers did. And what did we get for it? We don't know.
Good points, Ken. Good points all.
Yeah. But, they're going to continue to get away with it as long as no one's willing to hold them accountable for it. Because in the past, when I've run into situations like that and I file an action over at the court, it's amazing how fast the hospital and the administration finally returned over the document that I was looking for that they refused to give me in the beginning. So, it's one thing to say they should do it, and when we call them on it and they still persist in refusing to do it, someone needs to hold them accountable. And if no one's willing to hold them accountable, then they're going to keep on doing it, as we see here.
Absolutely, Ken. Well, thanks for sharing that information with us. That's pretty important.
All right. I'll be listening.
See you later. Yeah, so, and of course, Rory never lets the opportunity go by to take a shot at Joanne Brown. So here's the press release. Port Authority of Guam General Manager Rory Respicio is expressing grave concern. Whoa. I was standing up when I read this. When I saw that, I had to sit down. Jose, over the failed confirmation of former Senator Dr. Judith P. Gutherts to the port's board of directors. Senator Gutherts received 7 votes. Voting in her favor were Vice Speaker Tina Munya Barnes, Port Oversight Chair Senator Amanda Shelton, Senator Joe St. Augustine, Senator Roy Kanata, Senator Won't Parkinson, Senator Dwayne San Nicolas, and Senator Chris Duenas.
Just for effect.
Contrast. Just to say, see, I don't always vote the party line. This is going to fail anyhow, so I can go ahead and vote for it. Chris, if you ever want to call and talk about this, fine. If not, it's okay. Respicio wrote to the senators who did not vote in favor of Gutherts and noted that this legislative rejection comes at a crucial time for the port. If it weren't crucial, it'd be okay. They include Speakers Tetlahi, Paris, Barnett, Lujan, Bloss, Tatigui, Fisher, and Brown. So all of the Republicans voted against, as did Senator Palestine Paris, Chris Barnett, and let's see.
The Speaker.
Yeah, the Speaker. So the coalition, except for Chris, voted against her. That's interesting in light of the conversation we just had. Quote, in the past 5 years, our 2030 master plan, 2023 master plan, and port readiness plan have clearly defined the port's crucial role and supporting not only our island and region's commercial and economic activities, but also its critical role in military readiness in the face of glooming geopolitical threats. Respicio wrote, the inability to meet quorum due to your decision hampers our ability to effectively oversee and advance these vital functions due to the lack of a duly constituted board. Well, what that means is then you appoint somebody else.
They didn't have a contingent plan?
You appoint somebody else, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with you talking, with you pre-clearing somebody before you send a name over there. But you already heard about my dissatisfaction with Senator Guthertz, which I'll get to in just a second. And there's two other folks that didn't make it either. That would be Luis Baza and Frank Santos. If you watch the public hearings, I would say that any senator that would vote to confirm those two should not be in the legislature. Such dismal performances. And Luis Baza was caught in something that wasn't correct. I'm not going to say it wasn't true, but it wasn't correct. He had been on the Civil Service Commission before. He said that he never sat on any of the Port 7 cases. Joanne Brown contradicted him, saying, I was up there for one of the cases, and you were on the board, on the commission. So did you forget about that? Now, before that, Baza had been at the port, had been the HR guy at the port, and then, not at the port, at the Civil Service Commission, he'd been the personnel management manager at Civil Service, and then he went to the commission. Something that if I could vote against, I would always vote against. An employee should never ascend to the board of the commission that was his governing board. And I'll stop here on what Rory is doing for that reason. When you hear a story from an employee at an agency who says, oh, I really like my boss. He's so kind and so generous and so understanding. Does this make you feel really good?
Warm fuzzies all over.
Yeah. Because, there are situations where bosses will pander to attorneys. Pander to employees just to create that good feeling. They don't care about productivity. They don't care about mission accomplishment. They just want to make sure that the employees really, really like them. You could say the same thing about boards. The board's job is to choose the best director they can find and then hold him to account. Stuff like I just mentioned here, this paying out $160,000 without any authority to negotiate and without any invoices. And the rest of that story is this. He came to the board with the settlement agreement all drawn up. He came to the board with the resolution approving the settlement agreement all drawn up. The first meeting after the settlement, I sent a sunshine saying, please send all papers showing that the board authorized you to enter into settlement negotiation. There were none. He just did this on his own hook. It just goes, which means to me that he's looking for board members that are not going to keep a tight rein on him.
It sounds like the board is compromised.
It does. It does. And he wants more of the same. Perhaps one of the current board members said, hey, get Judy in here with us. She knows how it's done. Yeah, so when I found that out, I don't think any board should allow anyone to go out and negotiate any kind of a deal unless there is an understanding with the board or the commission what the board's position is. You're not negotiating on your own.
Which has to be decided in a board meeting.
One would think so.
With an agenda had already been brought up.
Exactly.
And in minutes reflecting that decision.
Yeah. So Rory just brought him a done deal. And Guthert said, are you sure we could do this? I'd like to hear from the Attorney General. Yeah, it looks a little too late, you know? So Guthert's on the board asked during one of the meetings, there had been, let's see, a matter had been discussed. At the end of the discussion, the chairman says, okay, any questions, anyone? Guthert said, questions just about this or questions about anything? The chairman was wrong and said, well, we only meet once a month, so you can ask any question you want. It's Robert Klitzkie. You know, this thing with the sunshine laws, has he been doing a lot of sunshine laws? Is this okay? Was this on the agenda?
Nope.
Nope. The floor next went to Conchita Titano, who talked in terms of harassment, putting a stop to it, etc. This was a classic open government law violation, right? Now, here's what Rory said about Guthert's. Judith P. Guthertz is recognized for her extensive experience in public administration. Obviously, she doesn't even know the open government law, or she wouldn't have stuck her foot into her big mouth like she did. Now, I wrote back to them and said, everything you did at this meeting is void. And then I did a sunshine asking for papers that show a curative effect for what they'd done. There were none. So they just whipped right on over it. So this was the only kind of performance that I've observed from Dr. Guthertz on that board. I do remember how she behaved herself on the CCU, and I don't know if you remember the infamous salary increases conducted in discussions conducted in executive session.
Oh, yeah.
Guess who was in that executive session?
Uh-huh.
This is not the kind of expertise we need on a board. Recognized for extensive experience in public administration and ethics, and her involvement in Guam's educational institutions, qualities that make her an exceptional candidate for the board. The things that I've mentioned make her an unsatisfactory candidate for a board. Governor Leon Guerrero's choice to renominate her highlights her immense value to both the board and the port community, Respicio added. I don't think that's what it means at all. I think the governor has always known who she can rely on to carry water for her and who she can't. The general manager raised concerns that those voting against former Senator Guthertz seemed influenced by another sitting senator's agenda. Senators should not have agendas. Now, of course, he's talking about Brown. Prioritizing political considerations over the welfare of the port and the community. Now, where's the political consideration there?
That's what I'm trying to ask, yeah.
Where does Brown, or where do the Republicans make any political headway by turning down that confirmation? Now, at the beginning of this part of the show, I went through the general considerations dealing with confirmation and lack thereof. There's no good politics in failing to confirm somebody. It's a burden that you'll carry for the rest of your political career. You have to give people who do it, if nothing else, high marks for courage, because that's exactly what it takes. Oftentimes, when that vote comes up, you look up in the gallery and who are you going to see up there? Friends, neighbors, families, supporters. They aren't going to like it if you vote not to confirm. Such actions, Respicio noted, compromise the integrity and effectiveness of the governing body, referring to the Guam legislature. What is that one where you have a pot and a kettle? How does that one work, Jose?
I think there's a little bit of equity involved.
The pot calling the kettle black. Yeah, Rory said that that this compromise compromised the integrity and effectiveness of the Guam legislature.
Did he say that with irony?
I think so. Respicio, in his letter addressed to the no voters, strongly urged them to reconsider their decision. Now, Rory, you're not in a position here really to do this. Perhaps the governor could, because it's the governor's appointment. Certainly any member of the legislature has the ability to move for reconsideration right up until the adjournment sine die. But you don't. You know, you're suspect when you do this. Is this because you've cut a deal with Senator Guthertz? Is this because you think you'll get more favorable treatment from her than some other board member, et cetera? I don't know. But these are the speculations that are possible because the director should not go out lobbying with the public and with senators for the confirmation of his own director.
Can they be considered a check and balance for the director of the board?
Absolutely.
That is odd.
Yeah. Please vote for my uncle because he's a really good guy. Respicio said a favorable reassessment would not only demonstrate your commitment to the port's continued success and your undistributed middle term there, Rory, that's begging the question. There hasn't been any proof here that the port is a success. The port's continuing our community's well-being, but also ensure that the port does not regress to the challenging times experienced under my predecessor. Now, I guess a really good way to start out here asking for reconsideration is to piss off one of the 6 people that you're depending on to turn back around, one of the 5 people you're tending to turn back around.
Especially since you identified them as one of the biggest influences of the vote.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really important. Let's really anger Joanne Brown. That ought to help a lot. The general manager remains open to further discussions to find a collaborative solution that benefits the port and the community at large. So Rory's open to a collaborative solution with the no voters. I'm so happy for him. A collaborative solution. You vote to confirm Guthertz, and I'll stop saying bad things about Senator Brown. Let's head for Churchill Downs.
Hafa-day, Alex Dimapon here from Security Title. Title reports, escrow forms, signatures, statements, and title insurance. When it comes to buying, selling, or refinancing your property, we do it all for you. At Security Title, we enjoy watching your dreams come true and being the ones to make sure it happens just as you planned. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
There we are, Churchill Downs, 6 furlongs. I cross the finish line, wrap up another exciting, elucidating, educational episode of Tall Tales. I'm just finished up here with Rory versus Brown. So, Governor, you're 0 for 3 now so far. Luis Baza, Frank Santos, and Judy Guthertz. Maybe it would be time to look for somebody who is not seen as an insider at the port. How about, just for a change, somebody who knows about shipping? Yeah, when Rory went through all of the accolades for Senator Judy Guthertz, I don't even know she knows how to swim, much less sail a boat, much less anything at all about shipping. And the port is one of those places, it's one of those technical agencies like power, water, where it really pays to understand the technology involved. Now, a board like, say, education, I suppose a good general education might take you where you want to go. The Board of Regents, you're looking for judgment, a particular position in the community, et cetera. But I'd like to see somebody on the, I'd like to see the governor choose somebody on for that port board that knows a little bit about shipping. And in fact, it knows a lot about shipping. No more Louis Baza, no more Frank Santos, no more Judy Guthertz, no matter how persuasive a case Rory makes. Now, this morning, I don't even know where this came from, but Ray mentioned the rumor that Judy was Roy's Achakma. Where did that come from?
I have no idea.
You heard it, right?
I don't think I recall that.
Mm.
Yeah, I have to look back.
And Ray said, well, they shared offices and they went,
Did you say Rory or Roy?
Rory.
Oh, Roy, okay.
Yeah. Rory was Roy's Judy was Roy's Achakma. That's really hitting below the belt. That's just
that doesn't even make sense.
Really, really bad. Okay, we got about 5 minutes to go here, Jose, and I don't want to start Public Law 37-48, racism versus fishing. So maybe I'll just linger over some of the posts on Facebook for a little while and depend on your racy abilities as a raconteur to kind of help me fill in the last 5 minutes here before we say goodbye to our president. We had Lonnie Salas today, Bertha Maza Cruz, Margaret Stacchio, Lanny Salas, Aline Marie Camacho, and Rico Blancafor, Bennett Lujan Duenas, who says, forget fireworks. Old reliable Bonnie Suba, and Rico Blancaflor Jr., Lonnie Salas, very faithful member of Rogues Gallery.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Bonnie Suba, Rico Blanco, Anna Delgado. Anna posted about, I think, the pride flag at one of the high schools, didn't
she? Was the one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't even recall the name now, but I remember the situation.
Yeah.
If I can pick your brain for something, hopefully it could be really quick. While you were gone, the Guam Supreme Court had offered an opinion, not a ruling, right? An opinion on the abortion, on Areola's bill.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if you read anything about that.
Which one?
The Guam Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Remember, there's a federal case, right? And
yes.
The Supreme Court has asked for an opinion, right? Or a ruling. Is there a difference?
Well, actually, in our case, yes, there is.
Okay. So their opinion, is it correct to say it's non-binding?
In a sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to clarify, because some people looked at that opinion as a defeat, and I looked at it as a tangent. More so, we were waiting for the federal court to make a ruling on Bell's law, in the sense that the Supreme Court said that the bill is null and void, in the sense that there are other bills
repeal by implication.
There you go. Yeah. Now, it was interesting that there was something that said that one of the justices said that the bill is null and void because it was not unconstitutional.
Yeah.
But that's not the part of the opinion, right?
That says concurring opinion. You know, I haven't gone through that since I guess I better put that on the calendar and give a chapter and verse here. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow.
It's an interesting way comment on process also.
Yes, it is. Okay, let's say goodbye to our president. Let's go, Brandon.
AUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
A Supreme Court Code of Ethics. I'm Jack Callahan. Fox News has been signed by every member of the High Court.
All 9 justices signed on to the first Code of Ethics for the Supreme Court, noting in a statement the absence of a code has led to the misunderstanding that justices are unrestricted by any ethics rules. The adoption of an ethics code follows increased criticism over undisclosed gifts and other financial benefits. The ethics code sets no new requirements, but describes standards for recusal from cases, the appearance of impropriety in extrajudicial and financial activities. Justices say this new code largely represents a codification of principles they have long regarded governing their conduct.
Fox's Jared Halpern in Washington. The National Guard has been mobilized in D.C. for today's March for Israel. Security will be tight, although the Department of Homeland Security says they have no specific credible threats. In an exclusive interview with Fox's Hannity, Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu says the world should be lining up behind Israel in its battle with Hamas.
We're dealing here with a brutal enemy that is committing a double war crime of targeting our civilians and hiding behind their civilians, forcibly keeping them in the zone of fighting.
President Biden urging Israel to protect the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City, where they say critically wounded patients and their caregivers are being stranded with dwindling supplies and no power. Israel says Hamas has a vast underground command center underneath that hospital. The House expected to vote later today on another stopgap spending package to keep the government running. If approved, the Senate would get the measure next. Senate GOP leader McConnell.
House Republicans have produced a responsible measure that will keep the lights on, avoid a harmful lapse in government funding, and provide the time and space to finish that important work.
Current spending extension runs out Friday. America is listening to Fox News.
Jason in the House, the Jason Chaffetz podcast. There is always someone doing something stupid somewhere. Dive deeper than the headlines and the party lines as I take on American life, politics, and entertainment. Join me, Jason Chaffetz, every Wednesday as I shed light on the news and make some predictions along the way. You never know who will drop in. Subscribe now on foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now.
President Biden is scheduled to meet with China's President Xi Jinping tomorrow in San Francisco.
National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says intense diplomacy is needed ahead of President Biden's Wednesday meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping.
We anticipate that the leaders will discuss some of the most fundamental elements of the U.S.-PRC bilateral relationship, including the continued importance of strengthening open lines of communication and managing competition responsibly so that it does not veer into conflict.
The leaders convening for the first time in a year during the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in San Francisco following tensions between the world's two largest economies. Also expected to discuss a vision for peace across the Taiwan Strait, restoring military-to-military ties, and fentanyl production. Kristen Goodwin, Fox News.
Bloomberg reports one agreement has already been worked out for China to crack down on chemical companies who make fentanyl to be sent to the U.S. The federal government is cracking down on a South Dakota hotel owner for banning Native American guests.
Connie Uri, co-owner of the Grand Gateway Hotel in Rapid City, cannot manage the business for 4 years and must publicly apologize. It's part of a settlement made with the Justice Department. Uri last March posted on social media that she would no longer allow Native Americans on the property after a fatal shooting at the hotel involving a pair of Indian teenagers. Members of an indigenous activist group were denied hotel rooms shortly after the post. After months of protests and boycotts, the Justice Department filed a discrimination lawsuit. A justice official describes Uri's behavior as hateful. Tom Rigotti, Fox News.
Monday Night Football. The Denver Broncos beat the Buffalo Bills 24-22 on a field goal with only 4 seconds remaining. Moments after a 41-yard kick missed, but that play was negated because Buffalo had 12 players on the field. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Howdy, folks. Colonel Sanders here with our newest KFC invention that combines flavor and great value. Introducing our Kentucky Fried Chicken Wraps. And they come in 2 different flavors. The classic wrap is an extra crispy KFC chicken strip, pickles, and mayo. And for a little more heat, try it with a spicy coleslaw. Try one today or get 2 wraps for only $6.50. The new Kentucky Fried Chicken Wraps are available for a limited time at your favorite KFC location. It's finger-licking good.
What is dedication?
The thing that drives me every day as a dad is Dariana. We call him Day-Day for short. Every day he's hungry for something, whether it's attention, affection, knowledge. And there's this huge responsibility in making sure that when he's no longer under my wing, that he's a good person. I want him to be able to sit back one day and go, we worked together, we did a good job.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Well, one thing we haven't agreed to is a ceasefire. A ceasefire with Hamas means surrender to Hamas, surrender to terror. There won't be a ceasefire without the release of the Israeli hostages.
And then do we go back to bombing? No. 4 hours. We don't want 4 hours. We don't want 16 hours. We don't want 22. We want a ceasefire now.
So the situation at the border, you're saying, is not a disaster.
That is correct.
Freedom is back in style. Welcome to the revolution.
Yeah, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song.
Sean Hannity. The new Sean Hannity Show. More behind-the-scenes information on breaking news and more bold, inspired solutions for America. Stay right here for our final news roundup and information overload.
All right, news roundup and information overload hour. 800-941-SEAN is our number. A lot of your calls coming up straight ahead this hour. Senate Judiciary Committee, that a hearing. If you've been following the news, there's been an all-out assault, witch hunt, attacks on conservative justices on the U.S. Supreme Court. For example, nobody got in trouble. You know, you're not allowed to march in front of Supreme Court justices' homes. That's actually illegal. But, of course, the weaponized, politicized Department of Justice didn't lift a finger when that was happening. But they seem very specifically focused on conservative justices, especially Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito and some others, all right? So in the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, Marsha Blackburn went after and rightly slammed Dick Durbin, radical leftist from Illinois, for launching this assault on the Supreme Court's legitimacy, reminding the committee of investigations they should be prioritizing instead, and she did not hold back. And she announced that she's issuing a subpoena to Justice Sotomayor's staff over her book deals. She announced subpoenas for Xavier Becerra over losing track of, 85,000 unaccompanied children, and to the DOJ, by the way, for terminating their China initiative, and issuing subpoenas related to the political donations by Robert Mueller's staff, and for DOJ and the FTC to provide documents regarding the Elon Musk investigation. Anyway, let me play these all for you.
Senator Graham mentioned Justice Sotomayor. Now, this summer, what we learned was that over the years, her staff has pressured public institutions to buy her books. And these books and her book deals have earned her $4 million